Hello, and welcome to the Upward Slopes podcast. I'm your host, Katie Hemphill, here today with another episode, and one that might just be the final episode of season 1 here of the Upward Slopes podcast. An episode for you and my own self today to really explore, to reflect back on this year. It's been not quite, but getting close to a year of creating these podcast episodes that have really served as a space to explore deeper what we are here to do at Upward Slopes, this space that I created back in 2020 that really emerged for me, through me, as this space devoted to questioning what humanity is doing here on planet Earth, living these stories and programmed beliefs and behaviors in a way that are just causing too much harm, are destroying not only our own physical health, mental health, but the health of the planet as a whole. This space that really emerged during this time, these years and years that I had devoted to human health as a biomedical engineer, as a health coach, as a researcher and writer, really exploring what I thought was going to be my path in life, this focus on physical health, on metabolic health and disease progression, and finding myself back in 2020 and the days of pandemic and a whole world on fire as all these different deep sources of harm and destruction and disease emerging to the surface, and bringing all of that here to season 1 of the Upward Slopes podcast, launching it back at the end of 2023, really still not knowing what exactly it is we're doing here. But I created this space as a space for me to explore themes and stories, to bring it through using my voice, really this playground for exploration. And here I sit where I've sat for weeks and weeks and months now, really deep in questioning, asking, what exactly am I here to teach and speak to and weave stories of, and really sitting in a space for a few weeks now. As I've spoken to last month in July, I ran my second 100-mile ultra running event through the mountains of central Colorado, this insane event. Really pushing myself to an edge. This experience where, this is something that goes beyond any sort of healthy running experience, right? You don't sign up for a 100-miler because it's good for your health, right? You sign up for something like this because it pushes you and it tests you and it brings you into a depth that you wouldn't be able to experience in many other ways. And And what I love about ultra running is how it gets me to this place again where it's, you can try to access it in different avenues. And I do teach, guided meditation, shamanic journeys, these other, shall we say, more gentler techniques for getting ourselves into these depths of the human experience. And another way to do it, as I've learned, is through ultra running, where I can find myself out in the most beautiful places, the most beautiful life-filled spaces on planet Earth, and be moving my body, breathing so deeply in connection to my own body, in connection to this earth that I live on, that it's in these places that I'm able to access a depth. And the question is, right, what is here? Why would I want to access this depth? And it's because here I can find parts of self, be present to parts of self that I wouldn't be otherwise. But it's more than this. It's more than this, because it's not just about self. It's about self in connection to that which expands beyond self. Not about me in my own head or my own heart or my own womb or any other part of self, but self in connection to that which expands beyond my own individual little self. So I decided today that I would hit record and kind of just go for it and see what's here. And I'm laughing now as I'm like, this is where we're going. This is where we're going. And I'm laughing because as I sit here holding the intention to bring through what feels like a sort of closure, a closure of season 1 of the Upward Slopes podcast. It's a closing that is simultaneously opening to what is ready to come through next. And with that, what happens is I find myself, how do I say this other than to say scared shitless, terrified to bring through what I know I've been needing to bring through for a while, but being unwilling to for reasons that may be logical or are largely illogical. I don't know. I've yet to see. But it's this fear of moving into what I feel and see our world is ready to step into this new way of being, which involves new ways of seeing the world, involves new belief systems, involves a new, more skillful way of making decisions and taking action. And in order to bring that through, it requires within my own self the same shift. Me, my own self, living this life as a scientist, engineer, very much so growing up in the Church of Science and Engineering, and that nothing exists, nothing is real unless we can measure it, quantify it, validate it through equations and statistical processes and all that very mechanized worldview that so many of us find ourselves in. And with that being so closed off to reality through a lived experience that can be sensed, touched, felt, known right here through our very own senses. And it's this sort of shift. It's this sort of shift that I myself have been experiencing for the past, shall we call it, 4 years now, since I said yes to launching Upward Slopes and being pulled onto this journey out of the world of science and engineering and technology and into the answers that I was asking for. How is it that we as a collective humanity and we as our own sovereign individual selves, how can we wake up to reality? Wake up to the reality that the way us humans are living life on this planet Earth is so goddamn destructive. And we take and we harm to a degree that is so far beyond acceptable. And it's plain to see. It's not like that statement is anything earth-shattering, right? It's so plain to see. But what's earth-shattering, and I mean that, earth-shattering, shattering the very fabric of this collective slumber that humanity is under. And this, can we open our eyes to actually see? And can we open our senses to actually feel? Can we open our hearts to hold this? That what is alive on our planet right now, the very actions that we do in our own lives, the way we've been taught to live and the systems we've been taught to live in, like, it's not okay. It's not okay, and it requires this shattering of worldviews, belief systems, ways of being, and it's big work. It's truly big work that does require a lot. And it's in these 4 years since saying yes to this and launching Upward Slopes and going on my own journey of moving out of the city, stepping off the corporate ladder climb, and moving back home to my humble mountains here in northern New Mexico, and really being asked to live that which I want to bring through the world, being put through the ringer, my own self, burning, going to my own depths, exploring the depths of what is truly alive here on planet Earth, exploring the depths, exploring that which lives far below, far beyond that which is alive in our normal waking consciousness, a consciousness that exists because of our belief systems, of our thought patterns, of the systems that are alive and continue to spin in this world, and that we as a collective say yes to. It's all of this that creates our normal waking consciousness and the world that we live in. A world where, I mean, is this where I start to actually list off the hellish landscape that we've created? Starting with what I thought was going to be my life mission, but something that's actually not talked about often, starting with our food system and how we grow plants, how we raise animals on the land, and the whole industrialized system that food goes through to eventually reach our bodies and be consumed in this whole diseased process. Disease for the earth and the way we grow food, grow plants, raise animals. Disease or the highly industrialized nature of the whole food production process. Disease for our own human bodies. So that's one, shall we call it, a problem to be solved, a reality to be shifted. I started with that one simply because that's what was alive on my own timeline. But having moved out of the world of metabolic health and nutrition, moving into the world of mental health and how it's just normal. It's normal in our world to be anxious. It's normal in our world to be depressed. It's normal to feel like we are on fire, burning, because we don't want to go live these lives that we've been told to live, to go work our lives away for these jobs that are so disconnected from something that feels meaningful. So we could call that problem number 2. We could... There's one I'm dancing around right now, but I'll speak to it because that's what I'm doing in today's episode, is piercing right through what's here for me, what's loud for me that I often filter for you all. So what we could label as problem number 3, that is the fact that we are still actively dropping bombs on the heads of civilians around the world. That war to this degree is still a thing that we say a collective yes to. And whew, this is a funky list, isn't it? We start with food system, we go to mental health, we go to war. And I could keep going, but instead of adding to this list, what I want to do is draw us back to the root system, the core, the depths. What is in the depths that is living down beneath our conscious awareness, down in the roots, this root system that we close ourselves off to, that we don't dare to look at, that many of us have been taught actively. Don't look there, it's unskillful. Keep your attention over here. Don't you dare look there, into what is screaming at us. Please look here, feel here, listen into what is here. What is here festering in our collective root system that lives within our very own bodies, our very own beings? What is here? What is here and now, that is currently demanding our attention? And are we willing to look, feel, listen to it, knowing that quite literally what is at stake is the health of our own bodies physically, the health of our own selves, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, the health of our planet and life in all its forms is what is at stake. And this choice point for humanity that is going to quite literally determine the fate of our planet is, are we willing to look, to feel, to listen into what is here? Because it is here, it is alive, and we either choose to continue to ignore it or we choose to see it, to be with it, and to take action aligned with it. So it was back in 2020 that I found myself making a stand to really align my life with this realization of really where we truly are at this point in history, and to make a stand to align my life and the teachings that I bring through with this intention, and this intention really setting the stage for the foundation of upward slopes, to live life pursuing the paths that matter, that means something in regard to the fruits of my efforts, changing the world for the better. And as we know with intentions, right? Intentions are sort of this idea connected to this heart-filled desire to step into something, to call in something. And with an intention, that doesn't mean we have all the answers. It doesn't mean we have a plan. In my case, I didn't have the answers. I didn't have the plan. I didn't have the knowledge, the thought forms to connect in with this intention. But still, an intention is powerful. So holding this intention, and what I didn't recognize at the time is how much setting this intention, making this stand would change everything. Not just my area of teaching, but how I, here as my very own human being, how I live and breathe and think and act, and how I see and live in reality. It's truly a paradigm shift for my own self, and a paradigm shift that I am holding space for the entirety of humanity to move through. And upward slopes really being a space to explore these paths, to question the ascension paths that I was taught, that our world has been taught, what is worthy of working towards, of calling in. What paths are we traveling, and why? Why am I on this path? Is it actually bringing forward the light? Is it actually resolving that which causes pain and suffering? Questioning, and being in this exploration, that's really what has served these 4 years holding space for upward slopes. And now I find myself in a shift that's been going on for months, and was just so amplified as, I spend all this time and energy devoted to running 100 miles, something, this path that for whatever reason speaks to me, lights me up, calls to me as a space to enter into, to push myself, test myself, learn, grow, transform, all the while experience life at a level that most other people don't get to. All those things I spoke to earlier in this podcast, and I've spoken to in great length on this podcast. So this wild, wild journey of mine to running another 100-miler and pushing myself, testing myself to another limit, in this way, experiencing this beautiful, beautiful, incredible experience, getting to be so fulfilled by this achievement, and at the same time, pushing myself in this experience, pushing myself to this limit that then demands that I sink into a space of deep rest, of letting go, of releasing into, right? This great dance, the great dance. That's one of my favorite things to teach. We have a whole episode on it if you haven't listened to it. The great dance, this, can we set our sights on that which is big and grand and calls to us? Can we climb this mountain, and then can we let go into stillness? Can we let go into stillness? Can we create space? No longer for efforting towards a clear objective, but space for the sake of space. It is here in this space that we rest as the magic that is deep transformation unfolds. What is here to shed? What is here to dissolve? What is here that is asking to be birthed anew? So it's in this space that I've been sitting for a few weeks now, following this great efforting, running one mountain after the next, in one big push, demands that I follow it up with an equal amount of rest, of letting go into, of space for what is here for me to shed, what is here to dissolve, what is here to be birthed anew as doors are closing and more doors are opening. And it's with this that I go back to the intention that I set when I created Upward Slopes, and deep reflection on all that has unfolded in the 4 years since then. And with it, an emerging clarity, a clarity that's been emerging for months, but is now here solidifying in my very own mind's eye, and is solidifying via what is felt, what is known within my very own body, within my very own being, that is solidified as this knowing that it's time to turn a chapter. It's time to turn a chapter, because I'm no longer in a phase of holding intention with a great amount of unknowing, but stepping into a chapter of continuing to hold the same intention, the exact same intention. Let me hold space for the continued dissolution of paths that no longer serve, of structures and systems and thought processes and belief systems that don't serve, that no longer serve this world we're stepping into. And can I call in? Can I read about, hear about, directly intuit? I don't care about the method. What I want is those paths forward that are truly going to enable us to call in more light, beauty, love, connection, joy, fulfillment, as we let go of that which causes such unnecessary pain and suffering to one another, to our own selves, to this planet as a whole. Can we learn to be discerning through all of it? Can we learn to listen into what truly serves our own selves, those around us, and life as a planet as a whole? And again, just speaking to this shift that, this recognition within that I can no longer pretend that I don't have answers worth teaching. And this recognition that it's time for me to make a stand for what I have come to know, that I know because I've seen it, I've witnessed it, I've experienced it for my own self, that these are paths that consist of ways of being, ways of thinking, believing, seeing, perceiving the world, ways of making decisions that are worthy of teaching, and making a stand for that in a way that I have witnessed myself dancing around, glossing over, not having the courage to speak to because a lot of it looks different. A lot of it looks different from the way that I was taught. And a lot of it requires the use of language that I was taught to avoid or even laugh at or totally discredit, because again, when you live in the Church of Science and Engineering, the only thing that's real and meaningful and useful is that which is directly quantifiable and validatable through statistical processes. And if it doesn't fit within that framework, then it isn't real. And being willing and able to call bullshit on that paradigm. And again, not because I'm here to discredit that world at all. You've heard me say it a million times, and I will keep saying it. Let us please call in all the frameworks, all the processes, all the paths, all the belief system, all the ways of being that bring us to deeper truth, to a more useful, more joyful, more fulfilling way of being connected to reality. And science and tech and engineering and that whole model that rules our worlds now to the degree that it does holds such power. And can we bow down and be in reverence to that and honor what it is? And can we see its shadow? Can we be in tune with the harm that is caused, the ignorance that gets louder as we give everything to this path, because it's a path that takes us into the world of the mind, and the world of tech is this stripping out of our own felt embodied experience. And to some degree, do we call upon our minds and do we develop technologies that solve problems and make our lives easier and bring joy and fulfillment to some level? Absolutely. And can we allow ourselves to live in this felt, connected to self, connected to our hearts, to our bellies, to our roots, directly in connection, felt connection, perceiving, sensing, knowing directly what is right here, known within our very own bodies? And can we be open to the resolution of problems and the joy and the fulfillment and all the greatness that is here in a world that has been taught, to me at least, and I think if you're still here, probably to you too, that these two can't coexist. But this new way of being in the world, they have to coexist because, in case you've forgotten in the last few minutes, our worlds, we are facing one hell of an uphill battle. And we are facing problems, challenges that are so loud and need our immediate attention and need the attention of a collective humanity to such a loud degree right now. And it's going to take everything. It's going to take the best technological, innovative solutions. And it's going to take us being fully connected, embodied, in felt connection with self. It's going to take us being in tune with our intuitions. It's going to take us being able to listen inward as we live and breathe in felt connection to this world, as we ask, as we call upon this discernment. Is this truly the most skillful path forward? Is this truly the most skillful path forward? Calling in more light, more joy, more connection, deeper fulfillment. Is this truly resolving problems that perpetuate suffering? Is this, whatever this is, whatever path you're on, is this step here and now as you stand here rooted in felt connection in this moment, and as you look forward towards those great heights that offer promise of something even better? As you stand here in this moment, is this next step truly skillful? Or are you just operating off of some old story, some old belief system, some system, structure, or process that was created in the past and is ready to crumble? So let's put some words to this. Let's put some terms that may be useful, may serve to create some sort of context, some sort of framework for us to work in. The one term that speaks loudly to me that I like to dance around because to one degree it really rubs me the wrong way, because it's used in a way that is a little bit, or a lot of it sometimes, disembodied. It's a little bit too out there, out of touch from reality. But it's really, really lives at the heart of what I'm calling in. And it's this phrasing of new earth, right? This new way of being on planet Earth, this great shift out of a world that is so overly masculinized, industrialized, mechanized. And it speaks to this shift where we get to put Earth and life at the center, at the heart of the model, at the heart of the framework, at the heart of our intention. Earth, our connected interbeingness as human beings, as biological beings, and as spiritual beings, as beings that live and breathe and otherwise exist with all these aspects of self that go beyond that which we may speak to or comprehend as biological. So this new earth piece, which is directly tied to this other wording, phrasing, this embodied spirituality. In this word spirituality, that again is someone coming from the Church of Science and Engineering really tries to avoid, but one that I am being asked to own. That really I'm a spiritual teacher, that I'm here to teach connection to that which is often unseen, to that which isn't readily perceived, to that which isn't necessarily validatable, quantifiable, measurable in the way that our very mechanized worlds tends to allow. But both of these, this new earth, this embodied spirituality, really, really living at the heart of what I'm calling in, what I'm teaching, what we're doing here on this podcast. And maybe those light you up. Maybe you're totally on board, totally aligned, and you're over there dancing because you're like, yeah, Katie's owning this. Or maybe you're kind of like me and you're like, wow, this is kind of edgy. This is rubbing me a little bit the wrong way. I don't know about this. Wherever you stand, whatever's alive in you, I don't know, just a moment to sit with it. At the end of the day, it's just words, but words do have power. Words have meaning, and that translates into what we feel, what we sense, what arises within our thoughts, and that all leads to action and transformation. And in that way, words have power. So I'll be over here continuing to work with language as I continue to call upon words and language to create the structure, the foundation, create a framework for what we're doing here. And it's with this that I want to speak to, I think it's a way that I can really kind of ground in this change, ground in what I'm really feeling, this need to close one door and open up to another, this need to really create a fresh space for what in one degree isn't really any sort of change, because I'm still going to be here speaking to the same thing that I've been speaking to for the last year, right? The intention hasn't changed. But what is changing is the stand I'm making, and that stand asking for new structure, asking for more structure. I know this is something I've been speaking to on the podcast here, in this first season, really taking much more of a free form, a more feminine approach. I've spoken to this so many times where I try to come in with any sort of structure or plan, and it just gets blown away. And it's like, nope, this is what we're speaking to today. And it's been this very feminine, freeform approach. And it's a creative process that works for me. And so to a great degree, I will continue to call upon, but with it, again, this continued ask for more structure. And I know that ask comes from my listeners, my readers, and my own self. It's that scientist, engineer, very masculine part of myself that was fully me for the first near 3 decades of my life that I kind of let go of. But it's been getting louder and louder, coming back, demanding more structure, holding solid foundation. So with that, speaking to this door closing on season 1 of the Upward Slopes podcast and opening the doors to season 2, what gets to come in season 2. And I'm going to explain this in the opener for season 2, put it in a separate podcast to really solidify that foundation for the next season. But I'll speak some words to it here and now, because if you're still with me, you're probably not going to be too happy if I leave you hanging. Where this is all going, again, this point that in one way, it's not actually changing anything. I'm still going to be speaking to the same threads, still holding the same intention. There's no great shift in the actual content, teachings of what I'm bringing through. But what I am bringing through is, well, one, a name change. I've spoken to this a fair degree in today's episode, how I launched Upward Slopes in 2020. The name Upward Slopes came through coming out of my scientist and engineering brain, right? I was really in the world of graphs, of staring at graphs and looking at upward trends, upward projections, what we call progress, what we call positive change. So I was sitting with this phrase, upward trends, for a long time. How is it that we change, create shifts in one, the trend itself? How do we actually create positive change? But underneath that, what do we actually qualify as positive change? Just because a graph shows an upward trend, is that actually a beneficial thing? So coming from this very technical mind of mine, which wove together so beautifully with the mountain and my very real, very tangible, very lived experience as a trail runner, ultra runner, rock climber, mountain climber, this very lived, very embodied experience that I know so well, what it means to move uphill. And when you can live that, breathe that, be that, this is what it means to put in the work, to move up a slope, up a mountain, up a cliff face. Up a cliff face, when you embody the uphill climb in that way, you learn discernment. You learn discernment after the number of mountains I've climbed. You are taught discernment. Is this mountain worth climbing? Should I be here? Should I not be here? Is there somewhere else, something better that I could be doing than putting in this tremendous amount of work yet again to get to that peak? Embodying the uphill climb, that's what we've been doing at Upward Slopes. Doing it in the spaces that, yes, are playtime, out in the mountains, that's my play. And doing it in the spaces that really demand our attention, because there are very real problems in our world that bring forth tremendous amounts of suffering. And that is true within our own selves, and it's true for life around us. It's true for my backyard forest that burned down when I was in kindergarten and burned down again when I was in high school and never came back because we didn't give our attention to the forest, and probably because the climate is changing. And so the forest in my backyard, just like the forests across the globe, are disappearing. And that is a significant problem that demands our attention. Are we going to go back into the list again? The list of problems, right? The list of problems alive in our world. Climate change, war, this horrific system that we have that has to do with food, particularly here in America, but throughout the world, right? And how that ties directly into physical health, mental health, ecological health, climate change. Whew. So anyway, upward slopes, this call for change, call for examining what we qualify as change worth working towards. And upward slopes really being a name, a title I gave to a very exploratory, right? Again, I don't have the answers. I don't know. I know nothing. Please teach me, show me, because I don't know, because what this world taught me is messed up. And I know it's messed up because I've lived it and it has messed me up. And in working in these ways, I see the fruit of what I'm supposed to be working so hard for, and I don't like it. I don't think it's actually serving. Upward slopes being this space to explore. I don't know. Please guide me, show me, because I don't know. But I want to create change that matters. And once again, stating that this never changes, right? This humble space of, I don't know, teach me, show me. All I want is something better. Please teach me, show me. This stands eternally. It's always a space for us to hold. And also, there is a space to make a stand and say, you know, I do know a lot. I've had a lot of experience. I've had amazing teachers. And I do have something to teach, to share. I have frameworks. I have procedures that have worked for myself. They've worked for others that I've bared direct witness to, taught myself. And I'm ready to teach these. I'm ready to teach these frameworks. I'm ready to share specific stories that I've been working with. And that asks for its own container, its own structure, its own vessel, and its own name. And it's with this new name that I want to enter into season 2. And it's with this new name that is going to spread not just to the podcast, but to other spaces too, right? My work doesn't just come through a podcast. It comes through in other spaces, and sitting now with my own question of where I want to use this new name. To what degree do I want upward slopes to fall away? What degree does this new name get to come through? Those are some questions that are still up in the air. But what's become pretty firm is a new name for the podcast, which which I don't think I'm going to reveal right now. I don't think I will reveal it until I announce it in the newsletter and until I bring forth the artwork and whatnot with that first episode for season 2. Again, recognizing what's in a name? What's in a name? It's really just a name change, but with a name change, really calling upon it to bring in new structure, new space, as I make a new stand to step in to the next degree, this willingness to be a spiritual teacher, teach, share stories in this space of embodied spirituality, call in new earth, as we stay grounded in reality, so we become ever more attuned to, present to, living and breathing with and in and as reality, as these very human selves, very physical, biological beings that we are. Alrighty, guys. Does that paint a picture? Does that paint a picture, help bring some more clarity to where we are, where we're going, what we're doing here after all? I sure hope so. If you're still with me here at the end, I'm going to make the assumption that I said something that sung true to you and that you still want to be with me here on this wild journey. This wild, wild journey that I certainly didn't expect, didn't plan for, but, back in 2020, set an intention to call in, and now I'm here, and now you're here, and life is pretty wild like that. So with that, officially closing the doors on season 1 of the Upward Slopes podcast. Honoring the 11 episodes, I believe it has been, that have taken us along these different journeys, all the stories and teachings and practices and all the things that have been shared here, all the insights that have come through. If you want to join me in honoring this part of the journey as we open the doors and really start to hold space, beautiful, love-filled, light-filled space for what gets to unfold in season 2, what gets to unfold as the ripple effect from the podcast, what gets to unfold from here in the beyond. Just an invitation, if it sounds true to you, to hold space for it. Hold space for this next part of the journey. May it touch the souls, call in the people that it's meant to call in, and may it truly serve to create that light-filled, love-filled, very real, very manifest change that humanity, the earth, and our own individual selves are truly ready for. So I will be holding space for that. I would love if you would hold some space for that as well. And with that, I thank you so much for listening today, this season, and I look forward to catching you next season and and all the other places that I'm showing up, the newsletter, Substack, Instagram. All the places are linked in the show notes. If you're not there and it sings to you, please meet me over in those spaces. With that, I look forward to catching you in whatever the next space is that we find ourselves in.